Trails and Greenway Council. And then the other thing I would say is that the nexus between malt and vinous beverages and recreational trails is relatively limited, and tax policy will try to connect a revenue source and kind of the services delivered whenever possible. So, for example, in the T fund, gasoline taxes pay for roads, right? And there's a very clear nexus between those two activities. Here, it's a little bit further of a connection, I would say. So that's just something to think about.
Representative Graham.
I think a lot of people on trails are probably drinking alcohol.
I wouldn't have made that point, but since you did, I think that's a fair consideration.
Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add, or was that
That's the general
pretty much that? Okay.
outline of it. Yes, I think the main point, right, is the 5% of that malt and vinous beverage tax is about $350,000 per year.
Yep.
Yep.
And this is maybe obvious, but we're actually confirmed that the revenue currently, 100% of the liquor tax revenue goes into the general fund and isn't designated for anything specific.
That is correct.
So if we were to take 350,000 roughly out for this purpose, it would need to be replaced by something, or some other program would not be funded
That is, yes, that is also correct.
in a base situation. Okay. Okay. Other questions? Representative O'Brien?
Ted, I don't know how much like legislative counsel you know about other states and their taxes, but do you know of other states somehow connecting a tax to this sort of recreational activity?
I don't know. I will.
Like we talked about a bike registration, for example.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely look in to see how other states do some trail funding. And that'd be a fun project because I spend a lot of time on a mountain bike. So
Right.
yes, yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Did you mention, Ted, what the projection is for the new tax on the new category? Is there not a new category? Do I have that wrong?
The additional cider.
The gin and tonic in a can.
It's ready to drink spirits. We don't, unfortunately, I don't think there's some disclosure. There's just not a lot of folks reporting those sales. So asking the tax department, from what I understand in the data, there are not enough people or providers reporting those taxable sales. And so we don't have data on that. But it's my understanding that it would be relatively small at this point, but it is a growing and new segment within the market.
And you did say that cider is also being added, right? Or,
Yes. Yes.
Cider, hard cider. Yeah.
Yes.
And this tax it's by the gallon, so it's applied to the manufacturer or the distributor. And we don't pay it if we go into the liquor store and buy, or go into the convenience store and buy alcohol. It's further up the food chain, sort of.
Yes, it's at the wholesale level.
The wholesale level.
Yeah.
So is cider finest? Is it under that umbrella?
It is in the malt and vinous. They've put it into this tax because it isn't really in the liquor, right? Because you're either in malt and vinous or you're in liquor. And so they put it into this category. Malt beverages would, right, people are more like Twisted Tea or like Mike's Hard Lemonade would be malt, and vinous is more wine. So I think to the extent it is similar to those beverages, it's kind of fallen into this category.
But then like some sort of apple brandy, right, is a liquor.
Yes, I think it's once it gets over yes, that is, yeah, once it gets high enough in alcohol.
Content.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yes, in the ciders, I also think that if it were some sort of like, it's not only apple cider, it would be if you make other ciders with other.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we leave that then and turn our attention to S115 revenue impacts there.
Sure. So S115 is the miscellaneous agricultural subjects bill out of the Senate. I don't know. I can jump. I don't know if it'd be helpful to refresh the committee on some of the provisions in the bill, or should I just jump into the fiscal side of things?
We've been talking about it recently, so I think we can probably just jump right into the fiscal.
Great. So this is, from our standpoint, it is the overall financial impacts of this, at least the state level, are de minimis. And this assumes that the maximum penalties imposed by the Agency of Agriculture will be continued to be limited to cases of extreme disregard for rules and regulations of the agency. These penalties, I'll go into a little more background on administrative penalties. But there are two sections around penalties that could have a fiscal impact. First is in Section 5, this is all the updates in the egg law, which hasn't been, from what I understand, updated in a very long time. And so the current penalties kind of have this first offense between $25 and $100 of the penalty. Subsequent offenses are between $50 and $100 per offense. And so this section would change the language to bring it in line with penalties for violations in kind of other areas of Agency of Agriculture jurisdiction. And so those are then changed in Section 6. And so we asked the Agency of Agriculture for information about administrative penalties, and they have not levied any on egg producers since 2016. So this is not, from what I understand, the Agency of Agriculture starts with education first, and then it's really only in cases where you have kind of someone who's willfully disregarding the rules where you'd start implementing penalties. So here we're estimating that there's no impact on state special fund revenues in fiscal year 24. And then in Section 6, this would change the maximum administrative penalties across kind of the whole agency. It would increase the maximum from $1,000 to $5,000 for each violation, and the collective maximum for $25,000 to $50,000. So the exact amount of each penalty imposed is at the Secretary's discretion. And we're estimating there's a de minimis impact as a result of these changes, primarily because we got information from the agency on their administrative penalties. And of those penalties were mostly small. So in the data we had in fiscal year 2020, 21 of the 34 weights and measures penalties were less than $5,000, and only 4 exceeded $10,000. So these all were relatively small. And most of them came from weights and measures. And so this is ensuring that scanners and gas pumps and all these things are registering correctly. So yes, the main thing here, most of the penalties are small. Therefore, when businesses are kind of, when the agency decides that it's kind of willful disregard for the rules, and they wanted to increase these penalties because they haven't been adjusted for a while, and to make it, based on testimony I heard, you could have a business that would rather pay a fee than fix the problem. And by raising the fee, hopefully, or the penalty, hopefully you're going to incur or encourage businesses to make changes in their behavior. So that's really it on the state level side. Again, there may be municipal impacts because of the stormwater provisions, but JFO typically sticks with state revenue forecasting.
Okay. Representative Levitt, if you're online watching, just make sure if you have a question though.
I don't have any questions. He confirmed sort of what I was thinking about the farm fines, that it's a municipal level thing, not a state level thing.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions? Anyone else have a question? Okay, well, last chance. Representative Lipsey.
This is a personal question. There's a Ted Barnett, deceased. So, are you're not a junior?
No, I'm not. I'm not related to that. Ted Barnett.
He was a amazing citizen, but not
No relation. Someone sent me, he was on the news as a super senior, and someone sent me that video footage being like, you know, this is the Ted Barnett you could aspire to be one day. And I thought that was great.
I told it was not the important question.
Thank you, Ted, for coming in.
Sure.
We have a few minutes before we're expecting our next witnesses in. When we're going to switch gears and talk about dairy, or yeah, it's a dairy.
DMC.
Yeah, dairy merchant coverage. So that's at 2:30, I think. So wondering if, having heard some testimony today on the last part of this bill, the water quality testimony this morning, whether anybody's got any thoughts that you want to. We haven't had a chance to talk about it. We've had several people come in and provide testimony, mostly from the agency, and we'll have more tomorrow. But if there's reactions, comments, more other people you might be hoping to hear from.
I know I was absent at times. Have we heard at all from the municipalities?
We have not.
Feel like, I mean, it seems pretty cut and dry from my viewpoint that it's a clear, it's clear. I agree with the agency, but I feel like we should do our due diligence and at least ask to hear their side of the story.
Yeah, so we have, that's on our list, yeah. And as far as I know, we haven't heard from anybody asking to testify, but I know that there were representatives from some of the municipalities and the league also that I think testified. Yeah.
And DEC is coming in too.
What's that?
And DEC is coming in too, right?
Yes, tomorrow we'll hear from at DEC. Yeah. Other than that.
Oh, right.
And what about a farmer who's been
whatever
it's called, feed?
So we from a farmer or and or organization representing farmers. I'll hear from that perspective too.
Were you making a pun?
Kind of the time of year you're gonna have hard work in the farmer.
Yeah. Yes, farmers are busy.
They can Zoom from their computers in their tractor cab.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. Yeah.
Where I should be, but
We heard the egg testimony also yesterday or this morning. I can't remember now what it was. But is there any other sections of the bill that people wanted to dig in on or get more testimony on?
One thing, I mean, thinking later about the egg testimony, one thing we haven't really heard is like what happens with, say, commercially sold non-chicken eggs? Like, if somebody's actually has a duck egg business, where does that fall?
He was pretty clear that he didn't cover anything.
Right. So I just wondered what happens with these sort of, do they just fall through the cracks or do they not?
Small eggs rolling through big cracks.
Yeah, I kind of agree that we keep asking, like, well, this just says eggs. And we all know that there are other kinds of eggs that are sold, that are raised and sold. And does it apply to them or not? And it seems that it doesn't, but then it's like, is there no
Right. Yeah.
other egg law?
That's sort of the impression you're left with.
Yeah.
And what you were bringing up too is, right, there's so much sort of mom and pop neighbors selling it. So, what happens there? Is it solely complaint driven or, I mean, they would just Tucker Diego, the only sort of inspector, you can't get a.
Right. And as we just heard today, maybe we had heard earlier, there haven't been any fines since 2016, egg-related fines. So what is
Do we have
that?
someone on the payroll like the Maytag repairman? It's just sleeping in the office.
Like, I wonder what percentage of us get our eggs from, those sort of
commercial
Right.
retail. It must be huge, actually.
Well, we can certainly invite somebody back, or at least reach out and try and get, a little more clarification. Other thoughts there? But,
I didn't want to be a fool, but was not.
we're still on camera, just so you know.
Is that considered a regressive tax on the vinous and cider or any tax?
Well, I'm not gonna try and wade into that.
It's a serious question.
Yeah, so
A driving
in
issue.
this, I would say in the sense that no matter what your income is, if you buy
Something,
a bottle or a can, you're paying the same tax that I'm paying, regardless of what my income is, yeah.
But it's not proposing to increase that tax. It's just proposing to take a portion of what's already coming in and direct it towards this.
Yeah. Yeah. So it would be interesting to hear if there are other states raising money from dedicated source for trails, how are they doing that? It might not be a tax, it might be fees on registration of bikes or something.
I was just wondering if a novel idea that we might pursue lowering taxes on anything.
Put it in a bill. Yeah, well, and again, this bill was not proposing raising a tax. It was proposing diverting a tax from from the general fund to this. So
Yes, but probably that money will have to be made up somehow.
Yeah.
In the general fund. Will it be through a different tax or something else, but
so
it's not like there's extra money laying around.
right now,
because of this.
if we were at a point where we had a long form bill with language that included this provision and we passed it out, the bill would have to go to the Ways and Means Committee and they would then address that question of they make it up somewhere else or. And I guess I said this earlier today that generally the question they would be asking is, do they do that or do they pass it off to the Appropriations Committee, which now has to, decide where to cut that, what program to cut, what not to fund.
I have a process question. So I saw in the, on the stormwater sections, it said the report was going to come back to us, Senate, Ag, and maybe, I can't remember if it was an actual, but also our House, Environment and Energy.
Yeah.
So at some point, will they take possession of this bill?
The Senate Natural Resource Committee had it as a drive-by. They were asked to do that. And now it's a different bill. Now it actually has the agency in the bill. So I'm not sure. They might feel that they have that right. They may also feel that they don't have time to do it. I think it depends on what we do with it, possibly as well.
So what would happen, say we restore the original language, those two paragraphs, and it passes the House? If there's a committee of conference, would it always be Senate Ag, or would it be, say, three different committees in the Senate contributed to the bill we got?
I think it would just be Ag, just be one committee. Yeah, the original committee.
But I don't think Ag would have a problem with it. Senate Ag would have a problem.
Well, that's what it would be fine. Yeah.
Senate Finance changed.
Right.
Okay. All right. So in a moment, we're going to hear a little bit about dairy margin coverage. And John, do you want to sort of warm us up a little bit?
Well, I mean, at a very basic level, that it's a type of insurance, so that it's like a risk insurance. So, and it's connected to two things. It's your sort of your milk check, your like mailbox check you get from milk, and then that's one price, and then it's their inputs to how much it costs to make that milk. So it's the difference between those for conventional milk, not organic. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, we know more about this, but at a national level, somehow they do national averages for this. So last year, when conventional prices were really high, even with inputs being high, there was no real payback to it. But now it's with the conventional prices heading south and inputs still being high because of like diesel and things like that still being high. It looks like this year it would pay out to farmers. So the program in Vermont is that state of Vermont pays for the premiums, since it's an insurance program, we pay the premiums for the farms that sign up for it. And that's sort of our subsidy, so to speak. And then farmers get the payout if it pays out at all. And the year before, I mean, the year we started it was like, I can't remember what the original state of Vermont, we invested something like $1.5 million and we got back something. I mean, if you counted what farmers got in checks, it was, 45 million or something. It's a lot of money. So it's pretty good leverage there. But I'm sure Dan Smith would actually have those numbers.
So,
There's nothing for anybody for organic.
Right. Well, organic can sign up for it, but it doesn't match the organic mailbox price.
so mailbox price is it's an expression that.
Right. The check you get in the
Yeah.
mail from the
Yeah.
co-op or
Okay. Where we're talking about.
after all those, components and everything else are taken out.
In all seriousness, they still actually mail checks with the
You
collateral.
should, if you have the option. You can either get direct deposit or get a mail check.
So I guess conventional, organic works when it does pay out, they get the payout. But it's, it essentially means organics only getting it when conventional dairy's bad. And then there's a cap too, and that's the other thing you'll hear is, I think it's 5 million pounds of shipped milk, whereas, we were hearing from Fairmont, they're shipping 42 million pounds of milk a year. So the big farms, it's something, but it's not covering that amount of milk. How many did you ship? Or you guys shipping?
I shipped about 1 million annually.
You were under.
Yeah.
What were you doing, Rodney?
Almost of that.
Right, so probably sort of high, small certified farms or whatever, would sort of be that sweet spot.
So we have, who's going to be joining us, Laura?
So John,
John, is he going to be here?
he's
And
gonna be on Zoom.
Okay.
And then Dan Smith will be in person.
okay, all right.
Dan's the guy who knows.
Yes.
One of the three guys who can understand.
In the,
Right,
right, yeah.